and you are live.
Welcome. Hey, I'm Matt Lownes here at LTV. Today is Monday, August 1st. Yes, it is August, folks. And I'm here live at LTV with the East Hampton Town Supervisor Peter Van Scoyoc for Ask the Supervisor. Peter, you had a really fun last night as your son took home Best Picture at the Montauk Film Festival. I believe that was what it was.
Yes, he won Best Short Film for the community category. So we're excited about that. His film premiered at the Hamptons International Film Festival last October, was well received and was accepted in the Montauk Film Festival, and he's applied to various other film festivals. But yeah, that was exciting for us and congratulating him.
Yeah. Besides that, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. And that is a really fun festival. It's in their third year. It's growing. There were a lot of really interesting films, some of which can still be seen by going to montaukfilmfestival.org, I believe. So I encourage people to check it out. Yeah, it was a beautiful weekend weather-wise, and I got to spend a little bit of time. R&R didn't have any community events really pressing this weekend, so that's kind of unusual, but enjoyed the weather. Can't believe it's August. I can't believe July is already gone. Summer is flying by. And we finally got a little rain today to moderate the very, very dry conditions that we've had here. And as you know, we did have a brush fire on Nappy by the walking dunes, which presented some challenges for first responders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that leads us directly into our first topic with the brush fire. I'll just give some background for the viewers. 20 to 25 acres of the grasslands were burned at the Heather Hills State Park last Friday night into Saturday. As Mr. Supervisor said, dry conditions, spiking temperatures, and unfortunately the addition of high tide created a difficult situation for the fire crews to get there, mostly because it was very far off the road, high tide, and there just isn't really paths there. It was a mile from any road, is what I read. While the they were able to get one truck, the state parks department had ATV to transport some. Some people eventually just got in cars and started getting over there, and by people I mean the fire departments. Montauk was joined by Amagansett, East Hampton, Sag Harbor, Bridgehampton, and eventually Springs as well. This was also included with a Suffolk County helicopter. There was some 60 to 70 firefighters that aided in putting the fire out. I like to remind people that the firefighters out here are volunteer. So it's a very, very awesome job that they were able to get this fire out and not spread. And then this is what Montauk Chief Scott Snow said. The biggest thing with this doubt we're in is to be careful with fire and what you're doing outdoors. I'm sorry, drought, I misspoke. Whether with beach fires, fires in backyard, fire pits, or fireworks, all it takes is one ember to go flying 100 feet. And he added, we were very fortunate, nobody got hurt, we didn't lose any equipment. It was a great effort by all the departments and everyone working hard there. Really, I'd just like to ask you if you have a statement for whether it's specifically about the fire or for the firefighters. I know that they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I would just reiterate the chief's comments in that, it's been extremely dry conditions here, and people should really be very careful about any kind of ignition source, whether it's a cigarette, don't be careless, throw it out your window. And if you're having an outdoor fire anywhere, be cognizant of the embers catching in the wind and traveling. These kind of conditions, it doesn't take very long for something to get out of hand. As you mentioned, we have volunteer fire departments out here, and these are individuals who are dedicated to their communities and, volunteer their time to keep us safe and respond in an emergency. I can't praise them enough for what they do. And we saw obviously a big outpouring in order to deal with this particular situation. Thankfully they were able to get it out. I know it did reignite itself. Some embers reignited again, just showing you how dry it's been, and they responded and quickly took care of it. But this was an area that was very inaccessible. There aren't any roadways really into that area, and it's soft sand and cranberry bogs all through that area. So that presented some challenges, but ultimately the departments came together and prevailed. So again, we thank them on behalf of the community for all they do for us.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, my whole life I've known plenty of volunteers. I still know a lot of them. All the hard work they do on their own time, it's really incredible. It's selfless, and I just want everyone to know that they did a great job and that we thank them. I mean, that's the reality of the situation, and they could always use more volunteers. So if you're interested, please look into it. Let's move on to the next topic. For me and the public, because this I'm not a bio major, this stuff kind of went over my head a little. Can you explain the latest water quality report, specifically though from the concerned citizens of Montauk? They're a little bit worried about the elevated, I'm going to try to say it again,
Pterococcus.
Enterococcus bacteria levels at the East Creek in Montauk, as it has recently hit a new high mark with the reported level of 9,209, most probable number per millimeters. I do not know what that means. 3 times the number from the previous week.
Yeah, and I think Enterococcus is an indication that sewage is entering a water body. This is something that's in the digestive tracts of mammals, and obviously with human habitation around many of our ponds and harbors and whatnot, septic systems can bleed into the groundwater and surface waters, especially in areas where there's very high groundwater tables that prevent the bacteria from resolving within the septic system. So once it becomes anoxic and there's no oxygen, that process can't complete, and that's usually in areas of high groundwater. So we know we have problematic areas throughout the town. The town has years ago undertook a town-wide wastewater management study and highlighted a lot of these areas. Groups like Surfrider and CCOM, Concerned Citizens of Montauk, have partnered and have been doing regular water quality testing to just as an indication as to what areas we have that are problematic, so that we can focus our water quality funds and projects to remediate that. And so there are a couple locations where we have chronic high readings, and they're often seasonal high readings. We're at the height of habitation here, if you will, on the South Fork with the summertime full swing. Pretty much every house is occupied, every system's getting used regularly, and that's increasing the input. So, we try to track and monitor those areas, and again, encourage people to take advantage of the septic rebate program that we have, where you can have an upgrade of your system to a low nitrogen system, which will help alleviate some of the impacts that we have on our surface waters and ponds.
Interesting. Okay, so it's definitely, obviously there's so many people out here. There's no denying that. And like you said, it's seasonal. So we'll just watch this. I just wanted to mention it because usually when something's 3 times higher than it should be, it's something to at least look into.
Absolutely.
I would like to move on to a topic that I at least understand a little better. The East Hampton town is seeking an injunction in the New York State Supreme Court to compel both restaurants of TT's and Cell Rose, 2 Montauk restaurants, to comply immediately with town code. Just a tiny bit of background, there's been overcrowding issues among other issues at both restaurants, and they've been told many times and they just haven't listened. So the town has decided to go through the New York State Supreme Court. Really, my question for you is, what happens if the injunction is given and they still don't comply?
Well, the situation becomes much more serious for any business that operates in violation of a court-ordered injunction, and has repercussions for their liquor license, particularly. What I would like to say is that, we have a multitude of businesses within the town of East Hampton. The vast majority of them comply with the laws. And what we're particularly concerned about is public safety. And when a business operates beyond their legal capacity in terms of fire safety numbers, that raises concerns to us. And what raises even more concern is when the fire marshal visits and makes those businesses aware, and then they have multiple days of repeated violations. And at that point, we are not willing to have the fines become just a cost of doing business and risking public safety. So that's our main concern here. As I said, the vast majority of businesses are compliant. Occasionally, they might have some issue when there's a check, which people tend to correct, and that's what we want. We always seek compliance first, but if someone's trying to put profits ahead of public safety, then we just have to step in.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very dangerous to allow overcrowding, and especially drinking situations. It can get out of hand very fast, and it's something that I fully think is totally worth it. We never want certain places to be over exceeded. We saw it during COVID. I think a lot of people kept hearing capacity numbers, but this is a little different. It's not about a disease. It's also about physical safety. Let's move on to the next topic, something that we've talked about a lot. I have a show here about at LTV. Let's talk about the housing fund that will be on the November ballot. If you don't mind, I will read the exact ballot that is the exact wording that has been finalized. To fund affordable housing opportunities in East Hampton Town, shall local laws amending Chapter 160 of the Town Code entitled Community Housing Opportunity Fund, and adding new Chapter 162 entitled Supplemental Real Estate Transfer Tax for Community Housing, establishing a 0.5% tax paid for by the purchaser of real estate property in the town, with the revenues deposited in the East Hampton Community Housing Opportunity Fund, be approved. That will be on the ballot, and the usage will be to fund, it could be spent on land and building acquisitions, town-led or public-private construction projects, rehabilitation, down payment assistance, sewage assistance. It's a lot of different things. And my question to you is, now that it's fully, the wording has been decided, public hearing has been had, has the town heard feedback? Have you heard feedback personally from the public now that this has been put out there?
So we've had a number of discussions and presentations of the community housing plan, which will authorize how the monies can be spent, and it will have to be adopted. We just had a public hearing, the first of two. The plan has now been submitted to the Suffolk County Planning Commission for their review and comments. They have 30 days in which to respond. And we felt it was important to go ahead and put together the plan ahead of the referendum. Although the plan under the enabling legislation doesn't actually have to be in place until after the referendum's passed, but we thought it was important for people to understand what the thinking was behind how the money might be spent. I always like to reiterate that this, while it's a transfer tax, it's paid for by the purchasers of real estate. So the vast majority of people, if you're already living in the town, unless you're buying a new house or another property, you don't pay into this tax. So it's not a property tax funded program, which means that like the CPF fund, which has been so successful in preserving land, this is an opportunity for us to create a fund that will help us preserve our community, if you will. Really, we know that the lack of affordable housing extends not just beyond low income, but it's pretty much any working person, and that can be a moderate incomes. And we know that the impacts extend to the difficulty in hiring, attracting, and retaining staff across many businesses, their school districts, the town municipality, the hospital, and that impacts all of us. So we think that the community will come out and support this effort. At this point, it's really important for us to continue messaging, make people aware of what this referendum means, and so that they can understand it and make the right call on election day on November 8th.
And then finally, the last part of this topic that I wanted to mention is there is an advisory board that is a unpaid position that will have different people throughout, but specifically there'll be, I think I read, 3 people from within the housing industry itself, whether it works for the town or whatever, and they will have their input in allowing in how the money will be spent. So it's not just, it's not the town board that's doing it. There will be an advisory board. And I think that's an important part to mention. There's been some misconceptions out there that I've heard about how the money's going to be spent. And I think there is plenty of oversight is really what I'm getting at. And can you just explain how they're going to decide who gets to be on the advisory board?
So the state enabling statute requires that a certain number of people, between 7 and 15 people, be appointed to the advisory board. As you said, there are some areas of representation that are specified within enabling legislation, real estate, banking, housing advocacy group folks. So, those are designated. So we'll have to make sure that we have people representing each of those. I think it's important to have, a representative from the hospitality industry, whether it be hotel or restaurant or both. And again, 7 to 15 people. They will vet specific projects. For instance, if there was an affordable housing project proposed, X number of houses, for instance, on whatever property, they would vet that project and make recommendations to the town board as to whether or not we should support that. There will also be public hearing after that, and the board will make the ultimate decision on whether to fund the project. There'll be certain aspects that I think will be handled administratively. For instance, first-time home buyer down payment assistance, for instance, that would be handled through the Office of Community Housing and Development, much as it is now. But in some ways, East Hampton is 2 decades ahead of the curve on this. We already established a community housing opportunity fund, I think more than 20 years ago. What this really does is it creates a continuing source of income and revenue for that fund. So it doesn't burden property taxpayers directly at all. Again, the CPF, Community Preservation Fund, 2% transfer tax has been incredibly successful at helping us preserve property, whether it be open space, farmland, historic properties, and also address water quality. And so we think that this fund will go a long way towards helping us subsidize housing. Will have, I think, potential for impacting traffic as we have more people who are able to work within the town, that less commuting is necessary. Much of the problems we see, traffic and whatnot, are all driven by the housing issue. So, I'm optimistic. I think the community really understands what the impacts of not having enough housing have been, and really it's somewhat frightening when you think about it, because we rely so much on every day on so many different people who provide services, whether it be first responders, whether it be lawn care, a plumber, a carpenter, whatever you need. And that's becoming more and more difficult for working people to live here. And you really can't have a community without community members. So having the continuity of people within the community generations, across generations, really influences our community, and that's a stabilizing impact on the community. And I think we need to do everything we can to sustain our community, and this is a good start.
Yeah, I agree. We only have time for one more topic here as we are on a tighter schedule with Ask the Mayor coming up next. I did want to mention tomorrow's town board work session you have on the agenda. Two proposals at Townline Road, and I thought it would be important to bring this up after the tragic incident on Townline Road a few weeks ago. And there are two proposals that you are personally proposing, stop signs at Townline Road intersections and propose no parking at Townline Road.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. And, partially in response to the tragedy that we had, the village of Sagaponack shares Townline Road with us. They have the western portion, we have the eastern portion. And so, I think it's really important that we work together in that particular location. I met with Mayor Tillotson back on July 18th, and we had a very fruitful and productive discussion. And we are in agreement that, if the village is moving forward with placing stop signs at these roadways, it certainly makes sense to have a coherent and rational approach on our side as well. So most of those intersections become three-way stop intersections, Parsons, Hedges, and Daniels Lane, which already has a stop sign on one side at that intersection. So, the town board will discuss that tomorrow. Also, the first 60 feet or so on the eastern side of Townline Road from the beach end will be designated as no parking, so the emergency service vehicles can get down to the road end, and everybody will have enough room to turn around. The village of Sagaponack has a number of other steps that they will be taking on their side of the road. They're looking at removing obstructions in the road right of way, whether it's encroachment of hedges or other things. We've done that in the past on our side. Highway Department's requested people cut their hedges back. We will also be taking a look at that as well. Providing the full width of the town right of way is important both for parking and for pedestrian safety. So these steps, we think, in that particular location will help. And we'll be looking at doing that in some other locations as well.
Yeah, it's always great to see the roads get safer, especially with more people out here. I know we keep saying that, but there are more people out here, and it's always nice when everybody can feel safer in their own community. Peter, I wanted to thank you for your time. Sorry for cutting us a little short here, but thank you so much, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks. I hope you have a good 2 weeks.
Thanks, Matt. It's good to see you. Stay safe and be well, everyone.
Thank you.